Welcome to HOA Karen Expose. Like, comment your story, and subscribe for weekly neighborhood drama. It started on what seemed like an ordinary Tuesday. You know the kind. Quiet, a little too quiet. Birds chirping, sprinklers ticking. A few cars parked neatly along manicured lawns. It's the kind of neighborhood where the biggest drama usually comes from a garbage can left out a little too long. But on this particular Tuesday, something was off. And the guy telling this story, he didn't know yet that his peaceful suburban life was about to be hit by a surge of pure, unfiltered entitlement. He had just moved into this new place. Nice spot, spacious garage, clean driveway, everything he wanted. After a few years of saving up, he finally got himself a Tesla. Not just for the tech or the smooth ride, but also because he really cared about reducing his carbon footprint. First thing he did after moving in? Install his own EV charger. A nice, high-speed setup right there in the garage. Safe, legal, and 100% his. The neighborhood was run by a homeowners association, an HOA. If you've ever lived in one, you know how that goes. Rules about lawn height. Rules about trash days. Even rules about what color your mailbox can be. The kind of people who care more about appearances than actual people. And among these rule sticklers was a woman, his next-door neighbor, who would soon become the center of everything that went wrong. Let's call her Karen. Karen wasn't just your average nosy neighbor. No, she had that special kind of confidence that only comes from never being told no. She walked around the block like she owned it. She liked to remind everyone of the HOA rules, even if she made some of them up. The moment she saw the Tesla, it was like a light bulb went off in her head. Or maybe a fuse blew. Either way, something short-circuited. At first, it was little things. She'd ask innocent-sounding questions like, "Oh, is that charger public?" Or, "So we're allowed to use each other's garages now?" Always with a fake laugh at the end, like she was just joking, except she wasn't. The homeowner would smile politely, shake his head, and make it clear, "No, this is my personal charger. Installed it myself. It's not shared." Karen didn't like that answer. The next morning, he noticed something odd. His garage light was on. He knew he'd turned it off. When he walked inside, what did he find? Karen's Tesla plugged into his charger. No note. No knock. Nothing. She had just let herself in, connected her car, and left like it was the most normal thing in the world. Who does that? He unplugged the charger, knocked on her door, and calmly told her that she couldn't just use his electricity. That she'd trespassed. That what she did was not only disrespectful but potentially dangerous. Karen. She didn't apologize. She got offended. Said he was being selfish for not letting her charge. Claimed that, as members of the same HOA, they should share resources. Yeah, you read that right. She even tried to say the HOA allowed her to use common outlets. He reminded her, again, this wasn't a public station. It was on private property, paid for with his own money, inside his own garage. But Karen just wouldn't let it go. She rolled her eyes, mumbled something about reporting him, and slammed the door in his face. You'd think that would be the end of it. That maybe she'd feel embarrassed, back off, and move on. But no. This was just the beginning. The next few days, he noticed strange things. His security camera, slightly tilted, like someone had touched it. Dirt marks near his garage door handle, like someone had tried to open it. Then, one morning, he woke up to find his garage door slightly open. Not all the way. Just enough to make it clear, someone had been inside. He checked the footage. And there she was. Karen. In her pink robe, walking casually up to his garage at 3:13 a.m. She had tried the door. Didn't get in that time. But that wasn't going to stop her. It was clear she felt entitled to his power. Literally. And here's where things got weirder. The next day, she called the police. On him. Claimed he was blocking access to community resources. The officers showed up, calm and professional, but you could see they were confused too. He explained the situation, showed the receipts for the charger, the installation permit, even the footage of Karen trying to sneak into his garage. The cops, they sided with him immediately, said she had no case, no right, and definitely no business being on his property, gave her a warning for trespassing, told her she could face charges if she tried again. But warnings, they don't mean much to someone like Karen. Later that week, it happened again. This time, he caught her in the act. Tesla backed into his driveway, cord snaked out from the side of the garage door. She had forced it open just enough to plug herself in. She looked up, saw him staring from the window, and didn't even flinch. Just waved. That's when he knew, this wasn't about electricity anymore. It was about power. Control. Karen thought she could do whatever she wanted. She believed the rules didn't apply to her. And the worst part? She probably thought she was right. He didn't yell. He didn't argue. Instead, he walked outside, unplugged her car, and calmly told her that he had reported her to the HOA and to the police. Her reaction? She laughed. Said, "They won't do anything. I know the HOA board. You'll see." And that's when things started to boil. He'd been patient. He'd tried being civil. But when someone breaks into your garage multiple times, steals your electricity, and acts like you're the one causing problems, it pushes you to the edge. But he didn't want revenge. He wanted a solution. A smart one. He began documenting everything. Every interaction. Every attempt she made. He kept backups of his security footage. He wrote down dates, times, even what she wore, just in case she ever tried to deny it. And as the tension rose, so did his frustration. That's where the idea came in. A little technical. A little bold. But absolutely legal. Because if Karen was going to keep plugging into his charger without permission, he figured he'd let her see what 220 volts really felt like, under a very different setup. One that might just make her think twice next time she tried to steal what wasn't hers. But we're not there yet. Because just when he thought things couldn't get any more absurd, Karen decided to take it even further. She went to the HOA. Filed an official complaint. Accused him of harassing her. Said he was deliberately denying her vehicle access to essential power. She even suggested that his refusal to share was creating a hostile neighborhood environment. And the HOA? Well, they weren't as quick to dismiss her as the police had been. That's when things really started to spin out of control. The HOA called for a formal meeting. Not an invitation. More like a summons. A letter showed up in his mailbox with a nice little HOA logo on it and a subject line that read, "Urgent matter concerning community conduct." At first, he laughed. He thought, this is ridiculous. No one's actually going to take her seriously. But curiosity, and a little anxiety, pushed him to show up. The meeting was held at the local community center, a place usually reserved for potlucks and yoga classes. But this time, it was the stage for a full-blown Karen drama. When he walked in, she was already there. Arms folded, lips tight, sitting like a queen in exile. And next to her, 2 HOA board members, flipping through papers like they were preparing for court. He sat down, calm, collected. But deep inside, he couldn't believe what he was hearing. Karen opened by accusing him of being a divisive force in the community. She said he was hoarding power and intentionally depriving neighbors of shared resources. She even pulled out printed screenshots of his Tesla charger, pointing to them like it was damning evidence. "Right there," she said. "That's the charger that's supposed to be available for all EV owners on the block." He raised his hand, quietly, then calmly asked, "Do you have proof that it's shared property?" Dead silence. He pulled out his own paperwork. The purchase receipt. The installation permit. Photos of the electrician's work. And, just for good measure, Screenshots from the manufacturer's website showing that the charger was a personal device, installed inside a private garage. Not public. Not communal. Not even visible from the street. Then he dropped the real bomb. The security footage. There she was, in grainy black and white, sneaking up to his house in the dead of night, plugging in her car without asking, walking off like she had just borrowed a cup of sugar. The room shifted. The board members leaned in. Their expressions changed. Karen went quiet, for once. Her face turned a bit red. She tried to say something about neighborhood cooperation, but at that point, the damage was done. The HOA didn't apologize. Of course not. That would mean admitting they'd taken her side too quickly. But they did tell her very clearly that what she had done was unauthorized and inappropriate. They even issued her a written warning. Told her that if she tried it again, they'd fine her for violating HOA rules around trespassing and personal property interference. You'd think this would be the end. You'd hope. But not with Karen. Just a few nights later, he woke up around 2:30 a.m. Something felt off. He checked his phone. No notifications. But when he opened his front door, he saw it. Tire tracks on his driveway. Fresh. Leading right up to the garage. He rushed to check the camera. There it was. Footage of Karen once again sneaking over, cord in hand. Except this time, she wasn't just charging her car. She was forcing the garage door open, jamming something into the side to keep it from closing fully. That was it. The final straw. He knew he couldn't rely on the HOA anymore. Or wait for another police warning that she'd just ignore. It was time to do something that would send a clear message. Not violent. Not destructive. But, let's just say, educational. He spoke with a friend, an electrician, who knew a thing or two about what happens when you try to mess with high-voltage systems without understanding how they work. With a little help and a completely legal modification, he adjusted his setup to include a harmless, but extremely jarring, surprise if someone tried to steal his power again without proper grounding or permission. Nothing dangerous. No damage. But the kind of result that would make someone seriously reconsider ever touching it again. The next night, it happened. Once again, Karen appeared on camera. Right on schedule. She snuck up to the garage, looked around, and tried to pry the door open. She reached in, grabbed the charger handle, and, let's just say the scream could be heard from 2 houses away. Again, no harm. Nothing permanent. But whatever she felt, it definitely wasn't the kind of jolt she was expecting. He watched from his bedroom window as she scrambled back to her car, shaking her hand, yelling into the wind. She didn't even bother plugging in that night. She just got in her Tesla and sped off into the dark like a cartoon villain who just realized the hero was 2 steps ahead. No police this time. No HOA complaints. Just silence. The kind of silence that means someone finally got the message. And for the first time in weeks, he finally slept peacefully. But the story. Oh, it doesn't quite end there. A few days passed. No more tire tracks. No flickering lights. No midnight visitors creeping up his driveway with a stolen charger cable. For the first time in weeks, things felt normal again. Peaceful. Like how it was supposed to be in this neighborhood before Karen decided to rewrite reality. But if there's one thing you learn when you deal with entitled people, it's this. Silence doesn't always mean surrender. Sometimes it means they're planning something louder. So when he got a letter in the mail, this time not from the HOA, but from a lawyer, he wasn't even surprised. The envelope was thick, formal, and smelled of passive aggression. The letter claimed he had caused emotional distress and potential physical harm to Karen. That she was considering pressing charges for unsafe wiring and malicious intent. It was written like she had suffered some kind of traumatic accident rather than getting a mild wake-up call from a system she had no business touching in the first place. It was laughable. But still serious. He didn't panic. He forwarded everything to his own attorney, someone who had already been looped in just in case Karen tried to take things this far. And when his lawyer read the letter, he chuckled. Actually chuckled. Because not only did the footage show Karen trespassing repeatedly, but the electrical system was fully compliant, inspected, and completely harmless unless someone tampered with it. Which, of course, she had. Still, they didn't ignore it. His lawyer wrote back, firm and factual. He attached documentation, timestamps, camera footage, and every single HOA complaint Karen had filed, showing her escalating pattern of behavior. The final line in the letter made it crystal clear: if Karen pursued this further, they would countersue for trespassing, attempted theft, and harassment. That seemed to do the trick. Because after that, she vanished. Not literally, of course, she still lived next door. But she stopped with the looks. The sarcastic comments. The hovering around his property like a mosquito looking for a way in. No more HOA letters. No more late-night missions. Just silence. The community noticed too. Neighbors who had once stayed out of it began casually bringing up the situation during walks or weekend lawn chores. One guy from down the block said, "Man, I heard about the Tesla drama. You handled that better than most." Another neighbor, an older woman who'd lived there for 2 decades, leaned in and whispered, "She tried to park in my driveway once and said I was hoarding curb space." You did what we all wish we could. Turns out, Karen had a bit of a reputation. Not just with him, but with the whole street. People were tired of her antics. Her endless HOA complaints. Her self-declared authority. But no one had ever stood up to her like this before. And now that someone had, the spell had broken. She still kept to herself. Still drove her Tesla. Still lived in her perfectly manicured house with her "I support the HOA" sign in the window. But she never tried to touch that charger again. Never even walked too close to his driveway. Like a cat that got sprayed with a hose once and now walks the long way around. He didn't gloat. He didn't rub it in her face. He just went on with his life. Quietly. Peacefully. The way it should have been from the start. And yet, one morning, months later, something strange happened. He got another knock on the door. Not Karen. Not the police. Not even the HOA. It was a delivery guy. Holding a box. No label, no sender. Just a short note taped to the top. "For your charger." From someone who learned her lesson. Inside the box, a brand new charger handle. Still in the plastic. He smiled. Closed the door. And finally, he knew the saga was over. Or was it? The box sat on the kitchen counter for a while. He didn't open it right away. Just looked at it now and then while making coffee or cleaning dishes. There was no return address. No signature. Just that simple, handwritten note. "For your charger." From someone who learned her lesson. Part of him wanted to laugh. The other part? Curious. Not just about what was in the box. He already saw the charger handle. But about what it meant. Was it an apology? A peace offering? A trap? Karen didn't exactly have the best track record when it came to honesty or subtlety. But nothing happened. No follow-up knock. No weird emails. No surprise lawsuits or late-night trespassing attempts. Just the box. Eventually, he took the charger handle out, inspected it, and placed it on the shelf in the garage. He didn't plan to use it. But somehow, it felt like a trophy. A weird, passive-aggressive memento of everything he had dealt with, and survived. Time passed. Seasons changed. The neighborhood calmed down. There were still HOA emails about yard decor and recycling bins, but nothing with Karen's name on it. She kept to herself now, like a retired villain who had finally accepted defeat. Every once in a while, their paths crossed, on trash day, or walking to the mailbox, but she never said a word. Just a tight nod. Almost a grim acknowledgement that she remembered everything. And that she knew he remembered too. He never brought it up. Never mentioned the charger. Never mentioned the night she got shocked. Some stories don't need to be told twice. especially when the lesson finally sticks. Then one day, something happened that he didn't expect. A for sale sign appeared in her yard. No notice. No gossip beforehand. Just the sign. Bold and red, planted in the grass like a white flag. Within a week, there were people touring the place. Walking around in clean sneakers, measuring walls, checking the driveway. A few asked questions. One even knocked on his door and said, "Hey, I heard about the charger thing. That was you, right?" He just smiled and said, "Welcome to the neighborhood." By the end of the month, the Tesla was gone. The pink robe, gone. The woman who once declared herself queen of the cul-de-sac, packed up and moved out. And just like that, it was over. No drama. No final word. Just silence. The kind of silence that wraps around you when a storm finally ends and all that's left is blue sky and the faint sound of birds. But if you think he let his guard down, think again. He kept the camera up. Added another one, just in case. Upgraded the charger lock. Not because he was paranoid, just prepared. Because once you've lived next to a real-life entitled neighbor, you learn something important. Peace isn't permanent. You have to protect it. A few weeks after Karen moved out, he got a letter from the new owners introducing themselves. Young couple. No kids. They said they were excited to be part of the community. In a handwritten note, they added, "We heard the last neighbor had issues. Don't worry, we're not like that. And we don't even own a Tesla." He laughed out loud when he read that. Folded the note, stuck it to his fridge with a magnet, and poured himself a coffee. For once, the quiet was just quiet. But every now and then, when he looks at that spare charger handle sitting on the shelf, he remembers. Not out of anger. Not even out of frustration. Just as a reminder of how far entitlement can go, and how far you sometimes have to go to stop it. Because in the end, it wasn't just about electricity. It was about boundaries. And what happens when you finally, calmly, powerfully, say no? Weeks passed, and for the first time in what felt like forever, the neighborhood actually felt normal. No shouting across fences. No surprise letters. No bizarre legal threats over kilowatt hours. Just the steady rhythm of life, lawnmowers buzzing on Saturdays, kids riding scooters after school, sprinklers ticking away in the early mornings. Peace had returned like a long-lost friend. And this time, it looked like it might stick around for a while. But the thing about stories like this, they never really leave you. It's not like he sat around thinking about Karen every day. Life had moved on, and so had she. But now and then, little reminders would pop up. A charger cable slightly tangled. A neighbor mentioning a strange listing on Zillow. Or even just the sound of a Tesla humming quietly down the street, making him glance up for half a second, before realizing it was someone else's. One day, while cleaning out a storage shelf in the garage, he found something unexpected. It was an old HOA newsletter from nearly a year ago, tucked between a stack of takeout menus and a long-forgotten box of spare light bulbs. Across the top in bold letters was the title, Community Spotlight, Green Energy and Shared Responsibility. And below it, a photo. A low-res picture of his driveway. His Tesla. His charger. He blinked. The article was short, maybe 2 paragraphs. It praised residents taking initiative with electric vehicles, and talked about fostering a neighborhood of shared values and progressive energy practices. Karen must have submitted it. Before the drama. Before everything. Funny, he thought. She once used that photo to claim his charger was a community utility. Now, it was just a piece of paper gathering dust in a garage she was no longer allowed to enter. He tossed the newsletter into the recycling bin. Not out of spite. Just cleaning up. Letting go. Later that afternoon, while trimming hedges along the edge of the property, a new neighbor strolled over. Friendly guy. Mid-30s. Wore a baseball cap and carried a toolbox. They exchanged a few words. Small talk, mostly. Yard stuff. trash schedules, local pizza spots. Then the guy pointed at the charger. "Hey, mind if I ask?" he said. "That setup looks solid. You wire it yourself?" He smiled. "Nah, had it done professionally. Thinking about getting one," the neighbor said. "But I heard there was history." He chuckled. Oh, there was history. The kind with midnight cable theft, garage break-ins, and HOA meetings that could have been reality TV. The neighbor laughed. "So I guess what I heard wasn't exaggerated." "Probably not," he replied. "But those days are over." "Good," the man said. "People need to respect each other's stuff. I don't mess with what's not mine." "Then we'll get along just fine," he said, shaking his hand. That moment, that simple handshake, felt like closure. A quiet confirmation that whatever storm had passed was just that, past. Still, the charger stayed locked. Not because he didn't trust the new guy. He actually liked him. But once you've dealt with someone like Karen, you don't assume. You don't hope for the best. You prepare. And maybe that was the real lesson in all of this. See, dealing with entitlement isn't just about standing your ground. It's about learning how to protect it for the long haul. About knowing that not everyone plays fair, and that sometimes, even when you do everything right, someone will still think they deserve what's yours. He didn't need revenge. He didn't need the last word. He just needed a locked door, a camera that worked, and the confidence to say no, and mean it. And that charger? Still humming. Still his. Still off limits. Exactly how it should be. But don't worry. If anyone ever forgets, he's got the footage. The logs. And just maybe, a little jolt waiting. Purely educational, of course. Just in case. Because peace is earned. And once you've earned it, you don't let anyone steal it. Not even with a Tesla. And so, life moved forward. Simple, steady, and without surprises. But there's something funny about peace. It can feel unfamiliar when you've lived without it for so long. At first, he caught himself expecting chaos. Every late-night knock, every distant car door, made him instinctively glance at the cameras. It was like waiting for a storm that never came. Eventually, that instinct faded. Not because he let his guard down, but because trust started to rebuild. Not in people like Karen, but in the idea that not everyone is out to push boundaries. Some just want to live quietly, the same way he did. The new neighbors? They turned out to be great. They waved. They said hello. They kept their yard clean and didn't complain about decor violations or grass height discrepancies. They brought over cookies one weekend, homemade, with a note that read, "Thanks for being cool about the charger talk. You've got nothing to worry about with us." And they meant it. It was a small thing, but it mattered. Because after everything with Karen, every small gesture felt like a breath of fresh air. There were no more ridiculous complaints to the HOA. No more sneaky attempts at stealing power. No more late-night drama. Just a man, a garage, and a charger that hummed quietly in the background while the rest of the world got back to normal. But he never forgot what happened. Not in a bitter way. More like how a scar reminds you where you've been, what you've learned. Every time he plugged in his car, he remembered that charger was more than just a device. It had become a symbol of boundaries, of patience, of standing up for yourself in a world that sometimes tries to make you feel small for doing exactly that. And to anyone else out there dealing with their own neighborhood, Karen, he'd say this. You don't have to scream. You don't have to stoop. But you do have to stand firm. Keep records. Stay calm. Know your rights. Because people like that, they count on you giving up. On you being too polite or too tired to fight back. But once you show them you won't be bullied, something amazing happens. They stop. Or at the very least, they move on to someone else who isn't ready. He wasn't proud of everything that happened. He didn't enjoy the conflict. But he was proud of how he handled it. Proud that he never lost his cool. never retaliated in the ways that would have made things worse. And honestly, that little zap Karen got? He didn't regret that either. Because sometimes, the only way to teach someone about boundaries is to let them hit the fence hard. These days, the charger stays locked. The cameras stay on. But mostly, they stay unused. Because the world, at least his corner of it, finally respects the line. And he sleeps well. Tesla charged. Lights steady. No entitled drama on the horizon. Just peace. And the knowledge that if chaos ever knocks again, he's more than ready. Eventually, even the memories started to fade. Not completely, because stories like that don't ever really disappear, but they stopped feeling so fresh. They became part of the background noise of life. A story to tell at the occasional barbecue when someone brought up wild neighbor experiences. People would laugh, shake their heads, and say things like, "Only in an HOA neighborhood, right?" And he'd just nod, sip his drink, and let them guess how much of it was exaggerated. But the thing is, it wasn't exaggerated. Not a bit. He never told the story for attention. He never posted it online for likes. He lived it, dealt with it, solved it, and most importantly, moved on. That's what made it different. See, people love to talk about what they would do in that kind of situation. "Oh, if someone touched my stuff, I'd lose it." Or, "She'd never get away with that if she lived next to me." Everyone has a tough guy story in their head, but most of them never have to test it. He did. And what he learned. It's not about being loud or aggressive. It's about staying sharp, staying calm, knowing exactly what line you won't let anyone cross, and having the patience to hold it, even when it's easier to just walk away. That's what Karen didn't understand. She thought her persistence would wear him down. That if she kept showing up, kept complaining, kept twisting the rules, he'd eventually cave. She was banking on exhaustion. On the idea that most people just want to be left alone so badly, they'll give in just to make the noise stop. But he didn't. And because of that, she lost. Not in some dramatic explosion. Not in some public shouting match. But in the quiet way that truly entitled people hate most. She got ignored. She got caught. She got outsmarted, without anyone raising their voice. And when she left, no one missed her. The neighborhood felt lighter. Not just because she was gone, but because everyone realized, maybe for the first time, that they didn't have to tolerate behavior like that. They didn't have to tiptoe. They didn't have to apologize for setting boundaries. They could live in peace and still stand up for themselves. All it took was one person refusing to be pushed around. The irony? Karen probably still thinks she was the victim. Somewhere out there, she's probably telling her own version of this story. One where she was just a misunderstood neighbor. Just trying to share resources. Just trying to bring the community together. But he doesn't care. Let her talk. Let her rewrite the ending if she wants. Because the truth doesn't need defending anymore. The cameras caught it. The records backed it. The silence that followed proved it. Now, when he plugs in his car each night, it's not just a routine. It's a reminder. A quiet moment that says, "This is mine. Earned. Defended. Protected." And if anyone ever forgets that again, well, there's always 220 volts of perspective waiting. The funny part. After everything, he kind of missed the drama. Not in a bring back Karen way, absolutely not, but more like how you miss the noise of a storm after it passes. The quiet is peaceful, sure, but it also reminds you how intense things used to be. Sometimes, he'd catch himself glancing at the cameras out of habit. Not because he expected to see anything, but because part of him had grown used to the tension. Used to checking for footprints in the grass. Listening for the hum of a charger being yanked at 2 a.m. But all he'd see now was a calm driveway. Neatly trimmed grass. A squirrel or two. Maybe a delivery guy walking up with a package that actually belonged to him. The days were simple again. In the best way possible. And then, just when he thought the story had completely ended, something happened. It was subtle. Blink and you'd miss it. But it was enough to raise an eyebrow. One morning, while taking out the trash, he noticed a Tesla parked a few houses down. Not unusual. Plenty of people had them now. But this one. It looked familiar. Same model. Same color. Even the same slight scratch on the rear fender. Coincidence? Probably. Hopefully. But the next day, it was there again. Different spot. Parked closer. He wasn't paranoid, but after everything, his brain was trained to notice the little things. By the third day, when the Tesla was idling in front of his house for 5 full minutes without anyone getting out, he decided to walk out and water the lawn. Just to get a look. No one inside. Windows tinted too dark to see through. But as soon as he stepped outside, the car slowly rolled away. He didn't chase it. Didn't call anyone. Just went back inside, checked the footage, and saved the clip. That night he sat down, pulled up the folder labeled Karen Incidents, and added a new subfolder. Karen 2.0. He didn't know for sure. Maybe it was just some Uber driver lost in the suburbs. Maybe it was someone new. Just as entitled, just as bold. Or maybe, just maybe, she was back. But this time, he was ready. Not just with cameras and locks and systems, but with experience, patience, proof. Because peace isn't just something you find, it's something you protect. And when someone tries to take it away again, well, let's just say he still has that spare charger handle sitting in the garage. And it's still got one more lesson left in it. Days went by. The Tesla didn't show up again. For a while, he convinced himself it was just a fluke. A stranger. A one-time passerby who happened to drive the exact same car with the exact same scratch. It could happen, right? The world's weird like that. But the feeling stuck with him. That itch between the shoulder blades, the one that tells you someone's watching, even if you can't see them. He'd lived through this once already. He knew better than to ignore it. So he checked the footage every night. Not obsessively. Just a quick glance before bed. Just enough to make sure the cameras were still working. Still catching every angle. Still his quiet little sentries in the dark. Nothing happened. For a week, then 2. Life stayed quiet. Until the package showed up. No knock. No delivery notice. Just a brown box sitting on his porch when he came home from work. No markings. No return address. At first, he didn't think much of it. Maybe it was something he ordered and forgot about. That happened more often than he liked to admit. But when he picked it up, it felt off. Too light. Too familiar. He brought it inside. Set it on the table. Stared at it. There was a note taped to the top again. Same handwriting. I'm just checking if it still works. That was it. No signature. No explanation. Inside the box, the broken charger handle. The same one she'd returned months ago. Now dirty. Cracked in 2. Burnt at the edge. His chest tightened, not with fear, but with that cold, sharp awareness. The kind you get when you realize something isn't over. Not even close. He closed the box. Locked it in the garage. Then he pulled out his phone, opened the footage from the past 24 hours, and watched. Sure enough, there she was. In a hoodie. Hood up. Sunglasses. Midnight. She didn't even come near the charger this time. She just dropped the box, looked up at the camera for a split second, and walked away. Like she wanted him to know. Like it was personal. But the thing is, that was her mistake. Because the first time, he reacted. This time, he prepared. He already had backups. Already had alerts. Already had a plan. And if she thought for a second that round 2 would go anything like round 1, she had no idea what she was walking into. He didn't call the police. Not yet. He didn't call the HOA either. Pointless. He just saved the clip. Labeled it. Filed it. And then he ordered something new. A smart relay switch. Custom voltage limiter. Battery safeguard override. Let's just say, it was designed to really discourage freeloaders. Because if Karen thought she was being clever, if she thought dropping off a broken charger like some weird calling card made her look in control, she'd forgotten one thing. He still controlled the power. Literally. And metaphorically. And next time she tried anything, she wouldn't just walk away with a cracked charger. She'd walk away with the full realization that some lessons come in volts. Big ones. So he waited. Not with fear. Not with anxiety. Just calm, focused patience. Because the moment you show people like Karen that you're rattled, that's when they push harder. That's when they twist the knife. But if you show them you're 10 steps ahead, if you make it crystal clear that every move they make is being watched, documented, and counted, well, that's when they start second-guessing themselves. And second-guessing was exactly what he wanted. The new system was flawless. Smart relay tied to a backup camera. Surge protection rerouted through a voltage monitor. If someone even touched the charger, an alert went off on his phone, the camera zoomed in, and if needed, power could be cut remotely. No more guessing. No more reacting. Just full control. The charger was armed, so to speak. And now, it was quiet again. 4 days. Weeks. Until one night, at 3:14 a.m., his phone buzzed. Motion detected. Driveway. Front charger. He opened the feed instantly. There she was. Same hoodie. Same slow walk. Like she thought it was some kind of game. She approached the charger. Paused. Looked right at the lens. And reached. One hand on the handle. A slow tug. Then. Snap. The switch kicked in. Power disabled instantly. But she didn't know that. Because milliseconds before the charger shut off, the system triggered a feedback surge. Harmless, but loud. A sharp crack of static electricity. Bright spark. Sudden pop. She screamed. Stumbled backward. Dropped something, maybe a phone, and bolted into the night like a raccoon caught in a floodlight. He didn't move. Didn't need to. He just watched the footage play back in perfect high definition. Paused it. Saved it. Filed it under a new folder. Karen. Final attempt. And that was it. No police visit. No apology. No more boxes. Just silence. Real silence. The kind that only shows up when someone finally realizes the game is over. She never came back after that. No cars idling down the street. No cryptic notes. No broken parts showing up on his porch. Just normal, boring, peaceful life. The way it was always supposed to be. He even stopped checking the cameras at night. Not because he forgot, but because he knew. Some battles don't need to be refought. They just need to be won the right way. Quietly. Smartly. Without lowering yourself. And if she ever thinks about returning? If she even dreams about touching his charger again? Well, she'll remember that spark. And the message it carried, loud and clear. You don't mess with what's not yours. Especially not twice.